And the High Court judge turned around and basically said, right, this judge abused her powers and her authority. Judges are not changing the Constitution. It's an absolute disgrace, right? People often say to me, and especially legal professionals, you can't sue a judge. Yes, you can. It's the law of tort. It's got all the cases in it, and it tells you you can sue a judge. You can sue them. Of course, we obey previous precedents that were made in the past. That's where our legal system comes from.
Welcome to episode 4 of Spiritual Wisdom Meets Constitutional Power, the final episode in this enlightening 4-part mini-series. Throughout this journey, we've explored profound personal stories, the hidden truths of chemtrails and weather manipulation, and the critical distinction between rights and privileges as defined by ancient common law. If you haven't yet seen the earlier episodes, we encourage you to go back and watch them to fully appreciate the powerful insights shared in this concluding chapter. In today's episode, we bring everything together, examining how nutrition, spirituality, and constitutional awareness are deeply interconnected. We'll discuss why enforcing your rights is as essential as nurturing your body, and uncover how these principles are key to building a balanced, empowered life. This is the grand finale, filled with wisdom and actionable insights to inspire and empower you. This is more than just a conversation. It's a call to action for those seeking truth and deeper understanding in their lives. So whether you're here for inspiration, knowledge, or a new perspective, you're in the right place. In the event you don't know who he is, Graham Moore is a lifelong champion of individual rights and constitutional law, dedicating decades to upholding the principles of the English Constitution and the common law. As chairperson of the English Constitution Society, the English Constitution Party and English Exit, Graham has made it his mission to defend the sovereignty of the English people. His work resonates far beyond England, connecting principles of liberty to global movements for justice. One of Graham's landmark achievements was securing an injunction from the European Court of Human Rights to save the life of a 6-year-old child, standing firm against the British government in a case that exemplified his unwavering commitment to justice. Over his career, Graham has served as a Mackenzie friend, mentoring defendants and winning critical cases that have overturned convictions and exposed potential miscarriages of justice. Currently, Graham is at the forefront of major legal battles, including cases against the Metropolitan Police for alleged torture and ongoing high-profile appeals in the High Court. His courage in standing up for constitutional rights has not come without personal sacrifice. He has faced bans from social media platforms including Facebook and YouTube, set up by police and imprisoned, and even lost his job for standing by his principles. Through his Rumble channel and public advocacy, Graham's message is clear: the Constitution is the solution. His passion for sovereignty and individual liberty inspires countless people to stand up for their rights and embrace the principles that define a free and just society. So pop the kettle and pour a cuppa. Let's get straight into this final episode of Spiritual Wisdom Meets Constitutional Power, Strength in Connection.
How property rights are protected in the Act of Settlement, the Coronation Oath Act.
Yeah.
That's two that I could, I just think immediately where it says, your spiritual and property rights, your liberties. And it's very clear on that, isn't it? By the providence of God. They're our God-given inherent rights.
Well, so again, there is I'd have to try and bring it
how
up
can
on
they
the
then
screen.
subvert that? Is it because we've allowed that?
Well, so property rights and what they're doing, there was a very famous case in constitutional and common law. It was called Entick versus Carrington, 1765. Someone sent me an email today, and they've gone through why it is that they can't come into your house. And I agree that Entick versus Carrington, there's many other laws of our ancient laws, and people don't see any of these. And what I say to people is, when I read the old law books, 100, 200 years old, originals, you see all these cases. And then when you try and search for them on the internet, They've disappeared them.
They've
They're
gone.
not there.
You're right.
They're not there, right? Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it isn't your right. So again, I want to make sure I emphasize this. The Bill of Rights is a trust document, right? The Equity Court and the Common Law Court come together via Lord John Summers and others and created that to give you inalienable rights under trust, right? And if people understood that they would literally go, "Ooh, hang on a minute," right? So there has to be trustees, there has to be beneficiaries, and there has to be a benefit, right? They're the three things of a trust. And we have got that with the Bill of Rights, right? So the trustees are, in effect, the separation of powers, the judiciary, the monarchy, and parliament. And individuals, so members of parliament should they're there to protect your civil liberties and rights. That's what their actual job is. And to bring grievances to the House. So if a constituent has a grievance, they are there to bring it to the House, right? Like, so what that speaker just did was shutting down the speech in Parliament was technically unlawful and unconstitutional, which we're trying to resolve at the moment, right? So just to make sure everyone understands. So what are the benefits? The benefits of the rights that are laid out and then extended in the Act of Settlement. So that is, and it says this, it actually says that, furthering the rights and liberties of the subject, right? That's the Act of Settlement. People need to understand that they are two crucial documents, just as important. They're equally as important as each other. And again, like Lord John Summers says, the Magna Carta is a fraction of your constitution and your constitution and common law rights, right? You're not being taught any of this anymore, and you should have been, right? Let me get back to this. The right to earn a living, right?
Well, you laugh, Graham, because I brought a case in the county court against a certain rogue water corporation. And I had a district judge tell me that we have no constitution. And I sort of shook my head and I was like,
well, if
really?
So if that was recorded, by the way, any lawyers, solicitors, barristers, anything out there at the moment?
Well, she came back at me and then said, okay. I said, well, we do. I said, we have superior constitutional statutes. I said, the Constitution is written over a series of constitutional statutes. There's a framework. And I said, there's a hierarchy. Okay. And then I reeled off some case law. And then she said, okay, well, you tell me what they are then. So I just, fired them off. But it makes me think, looking back at that, I wonder, because you and I have discussed that privately, and obviously I could have put in a complaint against her, but I just wonder whether she was coming not from an English standpoint in an English county court, whether she was coming from a British perspective. Do you see what I'm saying? Because if she believes that the British don't have a constitution, then she is correct in that.
I've got to be honest with you, if a judge had said that to me and continued with that just shows the same as doctors, which I said originally, they're not trained. So doctors are not trained in nutrition. Judges are not trained in the Constitution. It's an absolute disgrace, right? I believe that there should be a 2-year, minimal 2-year constitutional training for anyone who wants to be a barrister, lawyer, judge in the future, right? And it's a prerequisite because it's the foundation. And even Her Majesty the Queen in July 21st, I think it was 1988, said that, made a declaration to both houses of Parliament. That's where you need to, people need to start saying, well, hang on, because and again, it's the researchers, especially people like Asperger's, because they will go away and research all this, and you say, that's what we need, right? And they'll go, bing, 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 bing. right? And that's how it works. But getting back to that judge, so what I was going to say to you was this. People often say to me, and especially legal professionals, you can't sue a judge. Yes, you can. Right? And I've got a talk book down here, right? That tells you can, tells you the case, shows you what happened, right? And a judge, basically, going back to our oath system, remember how we used to deal with things, right? Which was cut their tongues out. I'm not suggesting we're going to be going back to that. But what I'm saying is, because of the oath system, there needs to be a remedy, right? And the remedy is, if a judge quite obviously says something that's completely wrong, even through ignorance, which is negligence, you can sue them, right? If they should have known something, if you've put something to them and they're just being arrogant, whatever they are, right, you can sue them. And there's a book there, a legal book, comes from Cambridge University, right? It's the law of tort. It's got all the cases in it, and it tells you can sue a judge, right? Why don't they know that? So
has she perjured her oath, being anti-constitution or being anti my constitutionally protected rights that I was pleading?
Yeah, she's perjured her oath. That is perjuring her oath.
Right, excellent.
There was a recent case. When I say recent, possibly in the last 5 years, where a judge sent a claimant to prison, right? For no apparent reason, and it ended up in the High Court. And the High Court judge turned around and basically said, right, this judge abused her powers and or authority, right? So that guy that happened to could have sued the judge, because he's then got from a High Court judge telling that judge has just abused their powers, right? That should never have happened. You see, an abusive process, false imprisonment, everything comes up, right? But again, it's because people don't know. But even this guy had a solicitor, barrister, and everything, right? And yet they didn't know that they could sue that judge for what she'd done, right? And again, people don't realise. There's another good one here: a right to earn a living. So do you remember during lockdowns, they were shutting down businesses, they're doing all these things. That went against the doctrine of the right to earn a living, right? And that's an ancient law in this country. It goes all the way back to the monopolies of the crown and monopolies, etc. So it's an ancient right. The full freedom of navigation and trade. If you read the Acts of Union and you read many of our common law rights, and I'll give you an example of that. They can't tell you that you've got to stay in. That's all BS, right? Or you can't do this, or you got to shut your business down. Because again, the right to earn a living, and it was restraint of trade doctrine is what it's called, right? The most famous person that used it, and there's been many, was Wayne Rooney, right? And then when people go, oh, I didn't know that. So no, they didn't like publicising it. But basically, someone had created a contract with him and then restricted him from using his image rights. So he sued the company. And the company argued, we can do this because he signed the contract, right? Well, contract law, otherwise known as private law, is governed by, if you want, by a constitution. There's certain things you can do and there's certain things you can't do. And one of the things you cannot do in private law contract is to turn around, let's say you're a bricklayer, and I turn around to you and say, well, you can come and work with me. I'm going to pay you £3,000 a week, or whatever it is, their current rate is, right? Here you go. But if you leave, right, you must sign this that you won't work as a bricklayer for 10 years, right? That's an unlawful contract, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not allowed to restrict your right to earn a living, So you would take that, if they try to enforce it, you would take that to the High Court. It isn't necessary for the High Court, and this is the bit people don't understand, it isn't necessary for the High Court to strike out every element of that contract, just the offending paragraph, or even the offending words. They can strike it out and say it's unlawful, you can't do it, right? And that's what happened. And then in that particular case, it's a fascinating case if you read it. I'm sad, I read them cases, right? And what was fascinating is in the court case before, the judge had said, listen to this, I'm not interested in ancient usage rights and ancient law, right? So again, Wayne Rooney has got money. Barrister went, well, that's not right. So he appealed it to the Supreme Court. Went to the Supreme Court, right? And the Supreme Court listed all the cases, most important ones, and the judge gave the other side a lecture on ancient usage rights and the Constitution and the common law, and said, we are a common law jurisdiction. Of course we obey previous precedents that were made in the past. That's where our legal system comes from, right? And then listed all them cases. And when I was reading through it, I was going, God, give it to him, son. Right? And that was in the Supreme Court. But you only need to pack the Supreme Court, which is what they're doing now, right, with bad judges or communists, right? So Sir Stephen Sedley, I think I might have said this on this show before, there's a great book out there, and it's called Lions Under the Throne. And it was written by a High Court judge. I believe he was an appeal court judge, which is higher, right? And he talks about the Constitution, he talks about the law. By the way, in that book, he says there is a separation of powers, right? And should be, but it's not operating. But in that book, guess what he admits? That as a judge, sitting on the bench, he was a communist. He actually admits to being a communist, right? But then he said, I changed my mind when the Soviets rolled into Czechoslovakia. That's when his mind changed. So you've got these people with ideology in their heads. Keir Starmer is an out-and-out communist, right? Go and have a look at his history. Peter Hitchens tells the history of Keir Starmer. He is a full-on communist, right? And what you've got is a full-on communist that was in charge of prosecutions in this country. And by the way, the CPS only existed from 1985. And then people are wondering why it's all going pear-shaped, right? So again...
it's the slow march through the institutions, isn't it?
Exactly that. And people don't realise the longest slow march, by the way, the slow march goes all the way back to Rome. All roads point to Rome, right? Or lead to Rome. People don't realise that the European system, the Scottish system, is communist in nature, right? The common law system is the one that directly opposes it and is the ultimate social justice system, right? If it's operated correctly.
Centres individual rights.
Correct.
And they suspended or tried to suspend our individual rights during COVID for the collective, which is fucking communist in nature.
No, it is. The whole thing is. And people don't realize. Listen, if you want to be a communist, go to China. By the way, I don't believe Russia it's not communist anymore, right? It might be a semi-dictatorship, but sometimes you need a semi-dictatorship to steer yourself out, as long as you've got the right dictator, right? Russia has got a strong constitution, and I know they enforce it, right? That's the difference. And they've got a separation of power, right? So for me, I haven't got issues with Russia.
They're a free country, which is why they've stopped us getting the Russian TV feeds now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I used to be, so just to let you know, I used to be on Russia Today every Friday for 20 minutes. All been taken down.
They're a free nation.
Yeah. And people don't realise, listen, you've got to have people that defend, you've got to defend yourself, right? Russia's being attacked.
By NATO, yes.
And people need to understand that they're not the bad guys here.
I
We
agree.
are. Well, not us, meaning English, Scots, Welsh, and Irish, but the British regime and the dark personalities that control it. And all they're going to do is use you, this audience, as cannon fodder for that system, right? They're going to do everything they possibly can. So let me go through a few more of these then. The right to full freedom of navigation and trade, that is also acknowledged in the Acts of Union, but it's also acknowledged in various other laws to say that, and especially the English. And don't forget, a lot of people don't realise this. When we first went to America, and that was prior to the Mayflower, I think it was in 1590 was the first time. I can't remember the exact year, but we went there. So it's obviously a long time ago, right? But the point being, the Mayflower didn't leave Plymouth until 1620, right? Well, that was England. We was the English, and we started to construct, and different nations started to go out there, the Dutch in particular, but the English, etc. But what we created is the colonies. I mean, people don't realise that 4 of the states in America are still commonwealths, right? Even today, they're still the Commonwealth. There's 4 separate states, right? One of them is Pennsylvania. People, if they understood the history and the legal history, that's when you start looking at what's going on and what's not going on and how to piece it together. But my point about bringing that up is that the British didn't exist till 1706, 1707. And then once that started to kick in, it was probably, well, it wasn't probably, from the early 1800s, when they lost the second war against the colonists, right? Against us, basically, right? That's what we're saying. They lost against us, right? In America. That's when they started to destroy us. Then you had the Chartists, and then as it moved through from the Chartists, you got into the 1850s, 1840s, 1850s, 1860s, and you had Karl Marx. People don't realise that Karl Marx was directly influencing Abraham Lincoln, right? If you go back to 1938, there's an article, right? It shows you clearly, right? In America, the Communist Party, the 10th Conference of the Communist Party of America in 1938, and they had 3 big statues that they was honouring on the stage. Who was they? Abraham Lincoln, Lenin, Stalin, right? Starts to give you an indication of what's going on, right? Mm. So when you realise, and then you've got the Fabian Society, which I won't get into, but all I'm trying to say to people is this is all about communism, and we are already in a civil war. We're not going into one, and all these people that keep waving the British flag, you're waving the flag of the enemy, and the enemy is the British establishment, the British ruling class, the British regime, whatever you want to describe it as. They're not nice people, right? They're dark personality. And what is directly associated, what is the weapon that they used, right? Well, the same as the Patriot Act, an enabling act to attack and consume the nation states was the Acts of Union, a political union, right? And again, the nationality of British didn't exist until 1947, and then more specifically in 1981 with the British Nationality Act, where they erased your rights, right? How did they do it? Because British was created as a nationality, right? It's not a nationality. It's a legal fiction, right? And it was created by Parliament so that you didn't have your natural right of being an Englishman, a Scotsman, an Irishman, a Welshman. What is nature? Nature is tribal. and we are a tribe. Do we accept other people into our tribe? Of course we do. If you obey our laws, our customs, and our culture, and you want to be part of that system, of course we accept you. It's when you stand up and say, we want a secular society, when England was always a Christian nation. So you need to go back and you need to be a non-secular nation again. That's not to say that you can't have Muslims living here. You can't have Jews living here. You can't have well, actually, you can't even have ecclesiastical law, meaning that the Church of England synod cannot make a law and then punish you with their own courts and send you to prison, right? That's forbidden in the English Bill of Rights. But so are the other two, right? So we're being completely fair. We're saying even Christians can't do that to another Christian. So why should you do it to a Muslim or to a Jew, right? We're saying you can't do any of that, and it's forbidden by our constitution. By the way, they know that, right? It actually tells you in the English Bill of Rights of courts of like nature is the exact wording. So what they're saying is anything like that, you can't do it under our constitution. When people like me and yourself and others promote the constitution and say, listen, we're not saying you can't be X, Y, Z. What we're saying to you is you can't have these laws. You can't build another community within a community. It is forbidden under our constitution, right? That's the difference. And that's the English. Who is it that removed that, right? Who is it that removed that is destroying that culture? And the answer is the British. They created a legal fiction called British. And when people get it, they go, they say, I never thought of it like that. I never thought, because all they've done is use that legal fiction and then said, you're British. By the way, the British haven't got a constitution. They haven't got one. Who's got a constitution? The English and the Scots and the Welsh as part of us, right? They can go back if they want to be an independent nation. I ain't got a problem with that, right? But let's go back to this. The right of full freedom of navigation and trade. Again, it tells you in the Constitution. And no one challenged it. That's what the bit I was gutted. I couldn't believe it. By the way, going back to the European Convention on Human Rights, what's the difference between an inalienable right, an absolute right, and which the English Constitution gives you, right, or God gives you, right? It's just that man is acknowledging it, right? And the European Convention for Human Rights. Well, the European Convention for Human Rights are nearly all, remember this, nearly all, right? They are rights that can be taken away. So there's a special term, and it's on the tip of my tongue. They're qualifiable rights, right? Who qualifies it? The government.
State, yeah. And they can, it's, you know, when you're right, the God-given inherent rights we have, as you quite rightly point out, are inalienable, whereas the European Court of Human, you know, the ECHR and the human rights, you know, these are rights that the state can challenge and more than often win.
Well, so let me just, really importantly, what you just said there, the state can challenge and win. How do they win? Because in the European Convention for Human Rights, the main qualifier is these rights exist unless there's a state of emergency.
You got it. That's what I mean.
Who creates the state of emergency? Your frigging government.
They do.
So it's fairly obvious, isn't it? That if there's something there, that's why you should never say it's for the common good. There is only one good, and that's your individual rights and your individual nuclear family, right? And you believe in it in the family. That's why they're destroying us. And people need to understand it is the government that creates the emergency. Therefore, you have no rights. under British law, they've signed up for, or the British Parliament have signed up for, and again, you've got the Human Rights Act, which again is unlawful, right? You've got the Supreme Court and the Constitutional Reform Act 2005. All of it is unlawful, right? The appointment of judges and the process of that now is unlawful, right? The whole thing is unlawful, and it's to fit in, right, with administrative law, or another way of calling that is communist law, right? And people are not understanding that every single right that you've got, you will end up far worse than Russia ever did, right? Because at least they had an ingrained, we are Russian. You can't do this to us, right? We are Polish. You can't do this to us. And what people have got to do is say, I'm English. You can't do this to us, right? And it's coming back. Yeah. But there's so many people. If you go to Russia now, 20% of the population still call themselves Soviet, right? Soviet is exactly the same label as British. And people don't get it. It's a legal fiction. The legal fiction in the Soviet Union was taken out in 1991 by a declaration. And they signed it and said, that's it, it's gone, right? That, and then what happened? NATO and the gangsters in certain parts of the world, which I won't go into, right, steamed into them and started to asset strip the people. That's what happened. And now, because they've come through it, they're a better country because of it, and their history will show that they're on the right side of law. Don't forget, everyone, the Acts of Union is a treaty, right? And a treaty is, under the law of treaties, is sovereign to sovereign, right? Not sovereign to subject. And it's really important that people understand that. No one external of this country, and when I speak of this country, I speak of England, right? No one. You're controlling yourself and your own family. And the quicker we take out this system, the better. And people will understand. That's it. Okay.
I concur, mate. And God bless you and that sentiment. Thank you.
No worries. Be lucky. Can have control over you as an individual.
And that brings us to the conclusion of Spiritual Wisdom Meets Constitutional Power, our transformative 4-part mini-series. Over the course of this journey, we've explored profound personal stories of healing and resilience, uncovered hidden truths about the systems shaping our world, and learned how ancient common law principles can protect and empower us. From the difference between rights and privileges, to the vital connection between nutrition, spirituality, and constitutional wisdom, each episode has brought us closer to understanding the power within ourselves. If you've joined us for the first time today, we encourage you to watch from the beginning to fully appreciate the insights shared throughout this series. Each episode builds on the last, creating a roadmap to reclaiming your sovereignty and living a more empowered life. On behalf of everyone involved in creating this series, thank you for watching. We hope you found these episodes valuable and inspiring, and that they've sparked new insights into your own journey of truth and empowerment. If you enjoyed this series, please give us a like, share it with others, and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Your support helps us continue spreading knowledge and fostering meaningful conversations. Until next time, we wish you good health, clarity of purpose, and the courage to stay empowered. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
Do you find the legal system overwhelming and wish you had the knowledge and skill sets to control judges, persuade attorneys, and win your case? Well, look no further. Sovereign Empowerment is proud to announce our partnership with Dr. Frederick Graves so that we can bring you the Jurisdictionary Law course, How to Win in Court, your ultimate resource for mastering the courtroom. Unlock powerful case-winning strategies as you learn to control judges like never before. This comprehensive course eliminates guesswork and empowers you to navigate the legal landscape with absolute confidence. With step-by-step instructions, flowcharts, and outlines, you'll have all the tools you need to persuade and control judges in any case or court. Learn from a seasoned attorney with over 40 years of winning experience, who has distilled his expertise into this comprehensive program. Access everything you need in one single package, including sample forms, video seminars, audio clips, and in-depth case-winning classes. Learn at your own pace, anytime, anywhere. Our 24/7 online access allows you to tailor your learning experience to fit your schedule. Access the course on your smartphone, tablet, or computer and become a legal master whenever and wherever you want. Benefit from a suite of powerful tools, including a free online legal research tool, a legal dictionary with common sense definitions, and an exclusive Q&A forum to connect with fellow students and obtain expert guidance. Good people have suffered too long at the hands of power because they just didn't know how to fight back. Now, in a matter of just a few days, you can acquire the tools and knowledge that takes law students years to achieve. Can't afford a lawyer? No problem. With the Jurisdictionary Law course, you'll gain the skills to win your case without expensive legal representation. Alternatively, equip your own legal consult with the tools and tactics to fight effectively on your behalf. Level the playing field and secure your victory. No matter what court, civil or criminal, conquer any courtroom challenge with ease. This step-by-step guidance ensures a quick and straightforward learning experience, empowering you to navigate the legal system with bulletproof confidence. As a testament to your newfound legal expertise, you'll have the opportunity to complete a final exam and receive an honorary law degree upon successful completion of the course. Showcase your achievement and establish yourself as a force to be reckoned with in the legal arena. Dr. Graves believes everyone deserves access to legal knowledge. That's why we offer the Jurisdictionary Law course at an unbeatable price. For less than the cost of a 1-hour legal consultation, you'll gain unlimited access to this complete program for up to 2 full years. Take control of your legal battles without breaking the bank. How to Win in Court has become the most trusted law course worldwide since 1997. Don't miss out on this exclusive opportunity to gain the upper hand in the courtroom. Enroll in the official Jurisdictionary Law course today and unleash your legal power. Click the link in the description below to become legally empowered today.